Mr. Wall, what if, following up on the Chief Justice's question, what if it was clear from those statements that you reviewed that their intention was actually to remove the president from office rather than the sort of pretextual reason that it is for pretextual legislative reasons?
I do think if you look at the statements, and we haven't urged that, but if you do, yes, I think they make clear that the subpoenas are not in aid of valid legislation. That's the only enumerated power to which Congress has pointed here. The House has not relied on impeachment, and so you would simply say the subpoenas are invalid. And to tie that into Justice Gorsuch's question earlier, I think we're not asking to go back and look at what they said or probe their mental processes. I'm just saying if you look at pages 46 and 54 of the red brief, and you look at what they actually say about their intended legislative proposals and then why they need the documents, it's paper thin. They don't give you any specifics on what they're thinking about doing or any specifics on why they need the documents. And that's not an accident. It's not the product of carelessness or thoughtlessness. It is because the purpose here is to expose wrongdoing, and the House has never really tried to substantiate why it needs these documents in service of its legislative powers.
Thank you.
Justice Ginsburg?
One must investigate before legislation. The purpose of investigation is to frame the legislation. You don't have the legislation in mind. You want to explore what is the problem, what legislative change can reduce or eliminate the problem. So, for example, the Ethics in Government Act, Congress may decide that it needs to beef up that legislation. It may also decide that for financial disclosure purposes, those are legislative purposes. Investigate to see if you need legislation of that sort. And then to impugn Congress's motive. I mean, even the policeman on the beat, if he stops a car and gives the reason that the car went through a stop sign, we don't allow an investigation into what the subjective motive really was. So here you're distrusting Congress more than the cop on the beat.
Justice Ginsburg, I absolutely agree that Congress can investigate in service of what legislation might be needed. Our submission is much more modest, that when that inquiry involves the president, that you need a somewhat higher standard with respect to purpose, because the room for regulating the president is so much narrower than it is with respect to private parties. And on the need side, because of the dangers of harassing and distracting and undermining the president, and that's a common theme that runs through the court's cases, that the president gets some measure of heightened protection because you can't proceed against the president as against an ordinary litigant. And all I'm saying is that Congress hasn't met that standard here.
How did that work out in the Paula Jones?
Justice Breyer?
Following this up, assume, as I do,